So I have this popular cinema ticket booking website called Book My Show, and we have this UI like this, where we can see the screen over here and all of the seats inside of the cinema hall. So the interviewer asked me to create a similar UI, but with a few changes, something like this, where we have different types of seats, just like we had on Book My Show. So you can see regular, premium, VIP. We have seats which are pre-booked over here, along with the screen UI and this aisle. But not just this, we can select the seats over here as well, and according to that it will show me the booking summary over here. And let's say if I selected one in regular, which is 150, and if I select one in premium, which is 250, so it will show me 400 rupees. And we have to create this component in such a way that it is highly scalable and supports most of the cinemas around the world. We also have to supply the props for the booked seats inside of this cinema, right? And when we click on book seats, it will return the parent component with all of this booking data. And this is exactly what we're going to be building in today's video. So I've opened VS Code over here, and let's go on and initialize a brand new React.js app. So I'm going to say npm create wheat at latest. And it's going to ask us to proceed. Yes. So project name, you can say cinema seat booking. I'm already inside of this folder right here, so I'm just going to press dot so that it creates our app inside of it right here. I'm going to choose React and JavaScript. All right, that's done. Now, if you want to see more such interview questions like this, I've given the link to my complete front-end interview preparation resource in the description down below, where I've created a lot of such machine coding questions as well as JavaScript and React.js questions as well. And for you senior developers out there, I've included a ton of performance optimization question as well. So make sure to check it out. So let's move forward. I'm gonna add Tailwind CSS as well, because in interviews, if you try to use custom CSS, that's fine, but it takes a lot of your time, right? And since Tailwind CSS is the industry norm right now, most of the interviewers will allow you to use it. So I'm going to search Tailwind Wheat on Google and click on over here. And there we go. Let's first install Tailwind CSS. So I'm just going to copy this command and paste it right here. After this, we are supposed to update wheat.config.ts. So just copy this Tailwind CSS function over here. And let's first wait for it to get installed. All right, it's done. Now go to wheat.config.js and say comma over here and paste this Tailwind CSS and import it. So just like this, copy and paste it right here. So this will basically configure Tailwind CSS inside of our React project. After this, simply we're supposed to import Tailwind CSS inside of our CSS file. So if you go to src folder, we have app.css and index.css. So let's remove all of these styles and just paste this right here. Inside of app.css as well, I'm going to remove everything. And inside of app.jsx, I'll remove everything that is inside of this return. I'm going to have a div and I'll say subscribe to Roadside Coder, which you should if you haven't yet. Let's remove this state and everything as well so that we have a clear React app. And now I'm going to run it. So npm run dev and just click on this link right here. There we go. Subscribe to Roadside Coder. Awesome. So, okay, we're going to be creating a new component over here, right? Let me just first get rid of this assets folder. So right here, I'm going to say new folder, components. I'm going to create a new file called cinema seat booking.jsx. I'll say RAFCE, and I'm going to name this component cinema seat booking. Right? Let's take this component right here and I'm going to import it over here just like this. Let's go back and see. Yes, we can see this component over here. Awesome. So cool. Now, generally in interviews, before getting started, it's good to plan your path forward, right? So let's see what are all the things that we will be needing over here. If you notice inside of our final app, we have these headings, we have the screen, all of the seat map, this legend for the seats, our booking summary, and also the CTA, which we will click after we have selected the seats, right? So cool then. Right here, instead of this, I'm gonna say title, screen, seat, map, legend, summary or booking summary, and the book button. So these are the things that will structure our solution, right? Cool. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that this component should be highly scalable, and trust me, this is the difference between a junior developer and a senior developer. A junior developer in this situation would just create the UI and make it work. But the way senior developer thinks is that this should be compatible with all of the cinemas around the world. So it should take the props in such a way that we don't have to touch this component again, right? So first of all, we will have the layout of our cinema, right? So this will be the first prop. Now, what are all the things that will be inside of the layout? So layout will have the number of rows, the number of seats per row, and also the aisle position, as I mentioned, where people walk to go to their row, right? So, okay, I'm gonna say rows. Let's provide some default values over here. So I'll just say 8. When we will supply these values from outside of the component, this will be overlapped, right? So I'll say seats per row. Let's take 12 by default. And I'm going to take the aisle position to be 5 or 6, whatever that you want. And this should actually be equals, not colon. All right, so that is layout. What else? We also need the seats type, right? So we have different types of seats over here. This is regular, this is premium, and this is VIP. So I'll take seat types. Inside of this, we can define different types of seats. Now, doesn't matter if you have regular or premium, whatever, right? Anything can be supplied from outside. So let me show you. For example, if we take regular over here, this can be called regular, price, let's say 150 rupees, and how many rows that this will cover. Similarly, I'll take premium as well. I'll take VIP as well. Again, if you're supposed to supply these values from outside, we just have to take this and go to this app.jsx. I'll say layout, and inside of this, simply you can define your custom layout right here. You can say seats, seat types, and over here you can define those seat types. Like for example, I'll just take this for now and I'll paste it right here. You know, something like this. Now, after this, we also have to supply how many seats that are booked already. So I'll say booked seats, right? This will provide us the array of all of the seats, like for example, D3, S5, etc, etc, right? Now, we're also supposed to define the currency for these price if you want to support cinemas throughout the world, right? So in this case, I'll just take rupee as default, but someone can also supply like pound or dollar, whatever, right, from outside. Now, what happens when the booking is complete? We have to trigger some function, right? And obviously, we're going to be defining that function outside of this component. So I'm going to be taking on booking complete prop right here. And this will be empty by default, but this will have the function that will be supplied from over here from app.jsx. Now, after this, we can also supply the title and subtitles for that particular cinema, right? So title can be cinema hall booking for now, which can be like whatever, IMAX or PVR, and subtitle if they want to add some subtitles over here. Right? So all of these are what will make our component scalable, right? These props will help us structure our component for different types of cinemas around the world, right? So let's move forward and start building our UI. But before moving forward, I want to show you the easiest way to deploy any type of application on the web, whether it's an API or a web app. You can deploy it by using Sevala. Let me show you how you can go on and deploy this app on Sevala right here, right? So I'm going to click on Add Service and click on Application. Now it will ask you GitHub repository, or if you have a Docker image as well, you can add this right here, right? So I'm going to go on with the Git repository. I'll click on Connect GitHub. Now we can choose this right here. Let's choose Master Branch. You can choose Resources. So for now, I'm just going to choose this hobby project, and keep in mind, we do have $50 balance inside of our account, so we don't need to worry about pricing and stuff right now. And now simply click on Create and Deploy, and let's see what happens. Now, few things that I really like about Sevala is that it is very easy to use, plus it gives us the options to configure the complete CI/CD pipeline along with the Docker images that I already showed you, and it supports many tech stack and even backend and databases and all as well, right? So right here you can see it is building it. If you go to this overview right here, it will give you the overview of your application, what is enabled right here. If you want to enable CDN, edge caching, all of these things, you can do them from right here. You can connect services if you want from over here as well. And there we go. It is deployed. Awesome. Let's click on Visit App, and you can see it is deployed on Sevala's domain right now. I would highly encourage you guys to go on and explore it and deploy your backends and front ends on Sevala. I've provided you the link in the description down below if you want to check it out. So first of all, for our title, let's just provide this parent div with some class names. So I'll say width to be full, minimum height to be screen, so that it takes minimum 100 viewport height, background gray to be 50. And like if you have not worked with Tailwind CSS before this, you can see we have all of these suggestions right here with different types of color codes, and also you can install this Tailwind CSS like IntelliSense extension from right here. So it will give you all of the suggestions. So I'll take background gray 50. You can see the preview, what this looks like. Padding is going to be 4, which is around 16 pixels, right? 1 rem. So again, you can see real-time preview of all of these classes right here. Now, instead of this, I'll have another div which will contain the h1. So let me just bring this title over here because we're building the title. Inside of this h1, I'll have the title. And below this, I'll have a paragraph which will have our subtitle, right? Let's see if this is visible yet. Yes, we can see it right here. Awesome. Let's style this a little bit. So obviously this is not Tailwind CSS tutorial, so I'm not gonna go much more in depth in that, but don't worry, I will be explaining you every single classes as we move forward. Right, so we can say class name max width to be 6xl, that is maximum width that this will take is this 72 rem or 1152 pixels, right? MX auto, so that it has proper margin on both of the sides, background white, rounded large, shadow large, and some padding of 6. For the title right here, I'm gonna say text to be 2xl. In the larger screen, so this is for like this is basically media queries, right? So if you hover on this, you will see if width is more than 64 rem, then what will happen? So text will be 3xl in the bigger screens, right? Font bold, text center, margin bottom to be 2, text gray to be 800. Let's see what difference it makes. Yes, something like this, right? Let's style this paragraph as well. So I'll say class name, text center, text gray 600, and margin bottom to be 6. Yes, something like this. All right, now we're supposed to define our screen, which looks something like this. So this is simply a div, right? Along with this screen text below it. So I'm gonna say below this paragraph right here, I'll create my screen. I'll have a div. Inside this, I'll have another div. And below it, we will have a paragraph tag, which will say screen. Or let's just say screen in capital. This div actually can be a self-closing div as well, something like this, because this is where we will be defining our screen. So I'll say class name width to be full, some height of 4, background gradient to right, that is we will add gradient from left to right, right? So from gray 300, it will have gray 400 in between to gray 300 with some rounded large, that is some margin, that is with some border radius, margin bottom to be 2, and some shadow of inner. So if you see it has this gradient, right? Start from 300, goes to 400 till 300, right? For this screen, I'll have some class name of text center, text small, text gray to be 500, and font medium. For this parent div, I'll have class name of simply margin bottom to be 8. Let's see. Yes, something like this. This looks good. All right, now below it, we will create the seat map. So this seat map. Now this will require us to have some logic right here, right? Because all of the seats will be rendered with respect to what we have provided right here in the layout. So for this div, I'll just have a class name, margin bottom to be 6, overflow X to be auto, so that in the smallest screens, this is scrollable, right? So if I show you our deployed app, if I go to smaller screen, something like this, you can see we have this scroll bar right here, and we can use it to move this. So this is a very important element of our UI. Keep that in mind. Instead of this div, we're gonna have another div where we will be rendering all of our seats, right? So I'll say class name to be display flex. Flex is going to be column, items center horizontally, and minimum width is going to be max. That is the max content it will take it inside of it. All right, now over here, we have to render all of our seats. And to do that, I'm going to be taking a use effect over here. So I'm going to be defining a state. Now, a state in React is basically like a variable. So use state. But whenever a state changes, our component also re-renders so that React apps update in real time, right? So I'll call this seats. So this is the variable where we will store the data, and this is the function that will allow us to change this variable. I'll show you in just a moment. And initial value over here is what we have to define. So I'll say initialize seats. So to initialize our seats, I'm going to be taking a variable called initialize seats equals, and this is going to be a pretty heavy function. So to prevent that, I'm going to be using use memo. That is, this function will only run whenever something inside of this dependency array changes. And in this case, it will be either booked seats, layout, or seat types, right? So I'm going to add all of these three right here. So these small things are very important for interviews, right? This shows the interviewer that you know what you're doing. So inside of this function right here, inside of initialize seats, I'm going to be taking all of my seats, right? So for that, I'm going to be having an empty array. And inside this, we're going to be defining all the rows and the columns, like everything that will make our cinema hall. So I'm going to be running a for loop called row, and it will run till layouts dot rows, right? So this basically right here. So we are going to be rendering all of these rows from top to bottom, right? So we will run this for loop, and inside this, we will render all of our seats. So now for each and every row, we will take another variable with an empty array, and here we can initialize all of our seats. So I'll say const seat type. First of all, let's just define what the seat type is. So for that, I'll be creating another function called get seat type, and we will supply it with that particular row. So let's create this function. So I'll say const get seat type, and we will keep it empty for now. We will come back to it very soon. So I'll just add a to do over here. Now after this, I'm gonna run another for loop over here. I'll say let seat equals 0 for that particular row. Seat is less than layout dot seats per row, right? So these many seats that we're supposed to render in that particular row, and seat plus plus. Inside this loop, I'll define the ID for each and every seat, right? So I'll say const seat ID equals string dot from char code 65 plus row. So this is basically a sky code that we're defining right here for each and every seat ID, so that we have a unique seat ID. Now, if you don't know what ASCII codes are, just search ASCII codes roadside coder on YouTube, and you will find my short video that I've created on this. So what this is basically doing over here, 65 is the ASCII code for A, right? So we will start from A, B, C, D until wherever this row takes us. So if I show you, this is 65, 67, 68, 69, right? So all of these are ASCII codes, which are then converted using this from char code into the alphabets, right? And we will say seats plus 1. So A1, A2, A3, something like this. So, okay, then we will push inside of this seat row function. So I'll say seat row dot push. I'll push an object right here. This will simply first have this ID, that is the seat ID, the row where we are right now, and the current seat. So the row number and the seat number. Now we're supposed to define the seat type, that is regular, premium, like VIP, whatever user has defined, right? So I'll say type equals seat type info dot type. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep it in regular, and obviously this won't work because we have not created this function yet. Then we will also have the price. So seat type info dot price, whatever it is. If not, we will just provide simply default value. We will also provide the color for this as well. Again, for this we will define different types of colors, and I'll show you how that will work. So by default we will have blue. Now we are also supposed to check if that seat is already booked or not, right? From this booked seats array. So I'm gonna say status booked seats dot includes. If it includes that seat ID, then we will say booked, otherwise we will say available. Then in the end we will say selected false if user has not selected it, right? By default all of them will be false. And finally in the end I'm gonna say seats dot push, that is the seats array, this seat row. We have created this complete row over here, right? Awesome. All right, now that we have all of these seats initialized, let's take this seats right here, and we'll go inside these curly braces and we will render these seats. So seats dot map, and what is this returning us? So inside this initial seats, actually I made a mistake. This should be seat type info instead of seat type, right? So that it's rendered over here. So when we are rendering it over here, we get all of these things, right? So over here inside of the map, I'm gonna take out the row and the index or row index. And inside of it, I'm gonna return a div, which will have the ID of row index and some class name of display flex, item center, margin bottom to be 2. Now over here, first of all, we will be rendering those A, B, C, D and all, right, for each and every row. So again, the ASCII value, so 65 plus row index, right? If it's 65, it will render A, B, C, etc. So now if we go back and check, so it's giving us the error undefined of reading maps. So this is not getting rendered, and that is because we have to return seats at the very end, right? That is when this will get the array. Okay, there we go. We get all of these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Nice. Now right below it, is where we will be rendering each and every row. And for that, I'm going to be creating a function called render seat section. Then we will leave the space for the aisle, and then we will render the another section. So render seat section. So first section will start from 0 to the aisle position, and the second one will start from the aisle position to the number of seats per row, right? And we'll also be providing the row for this. So let's create this function right here. If you want to even create a separate component for this as well. So const render seat section, and this will take three things: seat row, start index, and the end index. Inside this, so return div class name display flex, and inside of it, I'm going to slice this seat row, right? So I'll have curly brace and I'll say seat row dot slice, that it will take from start index to the end index, right? So from here to here only, it will return us a array, right? So I'm going to say map, and then inside of this map right here, I'll take the seat and the index, and inside this map, I'll say return div, something like this. This div will have the class name, which will implement the dynamic styling for that particular seat, right? So right now, okay, let's do one thing. Let's take another function for this class name, because this might be a little big of a logic, right? So I'll say get seat class name over here, and right here in the class name, I'm just going to say get seat class name and provide the seat, right? So with respect to the seat type and everything, it will render these class names, right? So by default, let's just provide something. So I'll say return width to be 8, height to be 8. This is for the extra small screens, and small screens we'll have width 10, height 10. In large screen, we'll have width 12 and height to be 12. Okay. Then we will have few more classes. Let me just write it out and then I'll explain you. So we'll have margin 1, rounded top to be large, some border of 2 around this. Now this is completely depends on you, right? Whatever type of styling that you want to keep over here. I'm just keeping the finishing a little bit better. So border 2, like cursor pointer, transition all, like whenever we hover on this, we'll have duration of 200 milliseconds. Display flex, items to be set. Justify center so that the text is in the very middle. Text to be extra small, and bigger screens text small, and font bold. Background blue to be 100. Border blue to be 300, and keep in mind these styling are for the regular seats, right? The default seats. We will add more conditions inside of this function. I'll say more conditions over here with respect to the current seat type. Okay, so inside of this div, I'm gonna say start index plus 1. So let's see. Yeah, check this out. This looks awesome. We have all of these seats being rendered. Now obviously we have to divide with respect to the aisle position, and I'll show you in just a moment. Apart from that, let's give this some ID, because we are using map over here. So key is going to be seat.id that we defined. Now one more important thing in these types of apps is that you can provide accessibility elements as well. Like for example, if I say title, this will help us out. Like it will help someone out if they're using a screen reader or something, right? So over here, I'll just provide a small description on what this seat is all about, right? So I'll say seat ID dash what is the seat type. If nothing is provided, I'll say regular, and the currency along with the seat price, right? This is completely optional, but this is good to be used over here, right? Now also what happens when we click on that particular seat. So I'll say oops on click. So we can create a function over here. Let's just call it handle seat click. We can provide the seat row and the start index plus index, like whatever we are selecting, right? So let's just create this empty function for now as well. So I'll say handle seat click, row index, and the seat index. And for the selected seats, we will also have a use state, right? So I'll say selected seats and set selected seats. We will again come back to this very soon. I'm just creating it step by step so that you're able to understand the whole process. So okay, now that we have rendered this, let's see how this looks. So something like this. Let's create this aisle in between. So it will simply be a div with class name width to be 8, so that it creates some gap. Yeah, you can see aisle position was 5, so it has created this aisle right here. Awesome. All right, let's do one thing now. Let's write the logic for this. No, not this. This thing right here, get seat type, so that we can see different seats being rendered over here. So first of all, over here we have seat types here, right? So this object right here. So inside of it, I'm just gonna remove this, and I'm gonna say seat type entries equals object dot entries seat type. Now what this will do is it will convert seat types into an array. So something like this. You can see the input was this, like in an object, and what we got over here is this, an array with the current seat type and the other properties of it. Okay. After this, we're gonna run a for loop over here from I equals 0, I seed type entries.length for each and every seed type I++. Inside of it, we're gonna take out both of those things, right? What is the string, like this is the type of the seed, and the other stuff as well. So this regular will be inside of this, and this config will contain this thing right here, right? So for each and every seed type entry. After this, I'll say if config dot rows dot includes this particular row, then we will define some color to it. And let's take some default colors over here inside of our app. So right here on the top, I'm going to define a variable with some default colors, right, which we can use in different types of seeds. So I'll simply say colors, and it will be blue, purple, yellow, green, etc, etc. Let's take these colors and go back right here. Inside of it, I'm going to say const color equals this colors array, and I'll say I modulus colors dot length, so it will fetch the respective color with respect to that particular row, right, and return type color and all of this config from right here. And actually we have to take this row from over here, right, since we are sending it from right here. Otherwise we can add some fallback over here if we don't have any seed types. So I'm just gonna say seed type 0th index, whatever type and config we will get, we will simply return it in case user has not provided, but this won't happen, right, since we have already provided the default values right here. All right, now that we have all of these information of get seed type, now we can add more conditions over here and get seed class name so that we can render them in different styles, right? So what I can say, if seed.status is equals to booked, actually instead of this return, I'll say const base class. If this is booked, then I'm gonna return base class plus these styles, that is all of the like gray and disabled and everything, like cursor not allowed, so that we cannot click on it. Then after this, I'm gonna check if the seed is selected, then we will return background green 500, border green 600, text white, transform scale to be 110, so it appears to be a little bit bigger, right? Then with respect to whatever the seed type is, I'm going to return base class plus we'll write a get color class function, and we will fetch the color for that particular seed, right? So let's create this get color class. So I'll say const get color class right here. Now this get color class function will obviously take the seed color, and we will provide, like it will provide us with the exact color. So I'll take the color name over here, and let me just write it real quick and I'll show you. So this will provide us with color map. Now this is quite a lot. Probably you won't spend this much time writing this in an interview. So you can just simply write background blue 100 and text blue 800, whatever. Like keep it simple, right? I've tried to make it perfect so that you guys can take all of the elements that you think will be helpful during the interviews, right? So I've created this color map for blue, purple, yellow, green, etc, etc. You can either simply do this background, and you can provide like template string over here and just provide the color directly over here, right? But I've tried to make it look much better, right? So simply we can return the color map with respect to that particular color name. And now you will see we have all of these seeds being rendered something like this. Awesome. All right, let's render the legend in the bottom of these seeds, right? So I'm gonna go right over here, legend. We will have a div right here with class name, display flex, flex wrap, justify center, gap to be 6, margin bottom to be 6, and padding to be background gray 50 and rounded large. You know what? One thing that we didn't try is if we are showing the booked seats over here or not. So let's go to app.jsx and I'll say booked seats. Let's provide an array of, let's say C2 and C4, right? So I'll say C2, comma C4. Let's save this. Yes, we can see both of these seats being booked right here. Awesome. Let's continue with the legend. And to render the legend, we will need to get all of these seat types over here, right? So where is it? The seat types. Let's make these seat types like unique seat types, right? So I'm gonna say const unique seat types equals, and again I'm gonna make this an array, object.entries and seat types dot map. And inside this callback, I'll take the type and config that we'll be getting from over here from the seed types and the index as well. And simply we can return this object right here with color and all of the config that we'll be needing. So let's take this unique seed types and let me show you how this looks. So I'll say unique seed types dot map, and I'll take each and every seat type, create a callback over here, and I'll have a div right here, right? So key seat type dot type and class name display flex items to be center. Now over here we will render our legend. So I'm gonna be moving a little fast over here to show you, because this is just simply rendering the UI over here, right? What we've already done, including get color class and everything, right? We're just rendering the seat. So inside this div, we have a div over here for our seat the way we've already rendered them before. I'll say class name width 6, height 6, border 2, rounded top to be large, margin right to be 2, get color class, and we'll provide the color for this seat, otherwise some default color. And we will also say seat name, currency, and the price. So it will look something like, oh, why is it not being rendered? Okay, we have to say return over here. Then we will see yes, regular, premium, and VIP. We need to also tell them which seats are selected, like what selected seat looks like, what booked seats look like. So below this, I'm gonna have another div, which again will be similar to this, but this will have width 6, height 6, background green, border 2, border green, and I'll say selected. Same for booked as well, but with gray, right? So should be simple enough, right? Don't have to deep dive much into this stuff. Now let's first go on and add the selection logic, right? Whenever we click on a seat, it should be selected. So let's see, we have already added, I guess, instead of render seat selection, this handle seat click, right? And we already have this class name. Where is it? This class name selected seats, right? So we will work with this. So over here, instead of handle seat click, we are taking row index and the seat index. So over here, I'll say const seat equals whatever seats are, we are going to be targeting that particular seat, right? Inside this seats 2D array. So I'll take the row index and the seat index, where we will get that particular seats, that this particular seat is selected. And first of all, let's just check if the seat is booked, then we will return it. We won't do anything. But if it's already selected, so I'll say is currently selected and seat.selected is true, then we will update the selection accordingly. So I'm gonna say, I'll take this set seats. So I'll say set seats. And inside of this, I'll take all of the previous seats. Seats. So this will give us the last value of this state. And I'll say return previous seats dot map row comma RIDX, right? That is the index of that particular row. And I'll take a callback over here. Inside of this, I'll have for each and every row, I'll say row dot map. I'll take s comma s index SIDX, that is. Then I'll create another callback over here. And simply, I'm gonna say if row index is equals to this row index that we have clicked on, and SIDX is equals to this seat index that we have clicked on. If that is true, then we will return all of the information of that seat and if it is selected or not. Right, so finally we will have all of the information right here. Like we are doing not s.selected, that is if it's selected then deselected, otherwise vice versa. Okay, now after this we will update the currently selected seats. So I'll check if this is the currently selected seat. Then I'll say set selected seats. I'll take the previous value, previous dot filter, and I'll filter out it from our selected seats array. Otherwise we will add it. So set selected seats, whatever the previous value was, and we will add this seat right here. And now if we try to click anywhere, yes, you can see this is working flawlessly. Amazing. So now that we have all of this logic, let me just shrink these functions so that we have more space. So now that we have all of this logic in place of seat selection, why don't we go on and render our booking summary? Let's just say booking summary, right? So over here, let's just have a div with background gray 50, rounded large, padding 4, margin bottom to be 4. Let's give the title of booking summary, and then we will take all of our selected seats. We will check if there are any seats selected. So selected seats dot length, if it's more than 0 question mark, then we will render the booking summary. Otherwise, and let's just give a div over here. Otherwise, I'm gonna say no seats selected. Let's see. Currently, what do we have? So if I don't select any seats, yes, we get no seats selected right here. Okay, so inside of this div right here, I'll first have a paragraph tag which will say selected seats, and we will have a span, and I'll say selected seats dot map, and I'm gonna show all of these seats that are selected. So I'll join them with comma. So it will render something like this. So if I select both of these, see, it's rendering something like this, F2, F3. Now next, I'm gonna render the number of seats that are selected as well. So again, pretty easy, right? So selected seats dot length. And then after this, I'm gonna be rendering the total price of the seats, right? So I'll say p tag total, the currency, and we will create a function get total price, which will add all of the price of these seats, right? So let's just create this get total price real quick. So I'll go on over here. This will be a very simple function. So get total price. Inside this, I'm going to simply return selected seats dot reduce. So reduce will help us to add all of the price, right? So I'll take the total, which by default is 0, and each and every seat. So I'll say total plus each and every seat's price, right? And this should give us the total price. Let's see if I select both of these. Yes, you can see we get proper calculation. Let me just add this. So yes, it is adding the seat's price according to the seat type accordingly, right? Awesome. So after this is done, finally we will have our booking, like book button. So I'll have a button right here. On click, we will say handle booking, which we have not created yet, right? So I'm gonna take this and I'll say const handle booking. This is where the main logic will go down. And I'm gonna say this button will be disabled if selected seats dot length is equals to 0, and let's give it some class name as well. So I'll say width to be full, some padding, vertical to be 3, horizontal to be 6, rounded large, font bold, text large, transition all, duration to be 200 when we are hovering on it. So selected seats dot length, if it's more than 0, then we will say background green 500, on hover 600, text white. Again, these are a lot of styles over here. If you want, you can keep it simple. You can choose to avoid adding these many colors and styles and stuff. Just keep the very bare minimum on what is expected from you in the interview, right? Otherwise, if it's not, like if we don't have anything inside of selected seats, then I'm gonna simply render background gray to be 300. Inside of this button, I'm gonna show a little summary as well. So I'll say selected seats dot length. If it's more than 0, I'll say book these many seats. So selected seats dot length for this much price. So currency get total price, right? Otherwise, we're gonna say set seats to book. Let's see. So yes, if I don't select anything, set seats to book. If I choose anything over here, you can see book 2 seats. If I remove it, it's rendering in real time right here. Awesome. Let's add the logic to click on it. So I'll go back to this handle booking. First of all, inside of this handle booking, we need to add a check as well. So if selected seats dot length, if it's more than 0, then please select at least 1 seat. After this, if it's not 0, I'm gonna mark the seats as booked. So I'll say set seats, and actually I'll just take this logic from right here, from handle seat click, right? So I'll just take this and I'll paste it right here. Instead of this index and all, I'm gonna remove this. I'll take the seat over here, and inside of this, I'm gonna simply say if selected seats dot sum, I'm gonna find if selected dot id is equals to seat dot id, then we will say status to be booked and selected to be false. That is, if that seat is selected, then we will deselect it, and then we will set the status to be booked. And then after this is done, we will call this on booking complete function that is being provided to us from the outside, right? So we will provide the seats, the total price, and the seat IDs over here, so that we can do whatever we want with this information. We can also show an alert over here that successfully book these many seats for this much price, and then we can simply say set selected seats to be empty. Cool, then let's try it out. So over here in the app.jsx, I'll say on booking complete. I'm gonna take the booking function right here, and just simply I'll just console log this booking, right? You can add probably whatever logic that you want over here in the enterprise app. So let's see, I'm just gonna open the console over here, and let's say we have these. If I click on book 3 seats, okay, we get the alert, and yes, we get the final summary of all of these seats. Amazing. And with this, we have successfully built this cinema hall booking component. Now keep in mind, I've tried to keep this as perfect as possible, but during the interviews, you're not generally required to add these many styles and stuff, right? You have to get the job done with all of the requirements that interviewer has asked you. Even if it's not that much pretty, that's still fine, but logic and everything should still continue to work. And if you like this video, hit that like button right now and check out my complete front-end interview preparation course. If you want to practice more such questions like this, enter coupon code CINEMA and you will get flat 60% off. And don't forget to check out Sivala from link in the description down below.